It's amazing. I've never had someone ever in my life seen someone get assigned a job and have no interest in doing it. A couple of Zoom calls, one visit, goes to the border, goes in and out a sedentary way. The only thing she commented on was when the horse situation, she thought there was a controversy. She immediately ran to a camera and ran in and said, oh, this is a problem with the way certain Border Patrol members are treating Haitian immigrants. It turns out the investigation is still ongoing because there's nothing there. There's what you need with Kamala Harris.
Well, she likened it to slavery, didn't she?
Yeah, she was unbelievable. And all she needs to do, guys, is not solve the problem. Try to solve the problem. Meet with the people. Demand answers. If she has that charm, if she's got that steeliness to her, she could start getting answers and look like a hero in this situation just by putting the effort in. She doesn't put the effort in, which there's no excuse for, and it's happening over and over again.
That was Fox News' Brian Kilmeade there, slamming Vice President Kamala Harris for continuing to ignore the border crisis. Since the Biden administration took office in January and reversed Donald Trump's strict border policies, the amount of illegal migrants trying to cross the Mexico-US border has hit a record high. President Biden named Kamala Harris the border czar, meaning she was put in charge of figuring out how to fix the crisis. Brian Kilmeade says the VP just needs to try to solve the problem, meet with the people, and demand answers. The VP has visited the border only once. In June, she went to El Paso, but hasn't been back since. Since early September, the crisis at Del Rio, which borders Mexico and Texas, severely worsened. An estimated 30,000, mostly Haitian migrants, flocked to the border and camped out under the international bridge. Most of them immigrants have travelled from South America, where they had been living after being relocated from Haiti following the 2010 earthquake. As jobs dried up, a lot of them have travelled to the United States in search of a better life and a stable job. But the situation became a humanitarian catastrophe because thousands camped in squalor, running out of food and water, with some reports of a few women giving birth there. But VP Harris still had not made comment nor visited the border to see it for her own eyes. As Brian Kilmeade points out, the only time the VP spoke on the border was when she slammed border agents who allegedly whipped Haitian migrants, despite officials and reporters on the ground saying those photos surfacing were misconstrued.
Depicted about those individuals on horseback treating human beings the way they were is horrible. And I fully support what is happening right now, which is a thorough investigation into exactly what is going on there. But human beings should never be treated that way, and I'm deeply troubled about it, and I'll also be talking to Secretary Mayorkas today.
And while all the migrants have been cleared from Del Rio by either being sent back to Haiti, some going back to Mexico, and the rest being held in government facilities, there are concerns thousands more are on the way. Texas Senator Ted Cruz said he spoke to Panama's foreign minister last week, who said 80,000 Haitian migrants were heading to the United States.
I got to tell you, yesterday, Martha, I sat down with the foreign minister of Panama, and she described how Panama has seen over 80,000 Haitian immigrants, Haitian evacuees crossing from South America through Panama, headed to the United States. And this is all happening because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris refused to enforce the law and have essentially said, anyone who wants to come to America, they're going to resettle them. They're going to give them benefits. They're going to let them stay.
Breaking tonight, tens of thousands of migrants are making their way toward the U.S. southern border as we speak. The Panamanian government says most of those travelers are Haitian. Also tonight, new images of Americans' tax dollars wasted after the Biden administration takes new steps to specifically abandon a physical border wall championed by the previous administration. We have Fox team coverage tonight. Bill Malugin is in southern Texas, where authorities who are already overwhelmed by the surge are bracing for a new onslaught. But we begin with Griff Jenkins in Panama, a crucial gateway for the incoming migrants. Good evening, Griff.
Good evening, Brad. We are the first TV journalists to come here to the Lajas Blancas migrant camp in southern Panama. It opened in May of 2020, and it is the same waypoint that most of those 15,000 Haitians passed through on their way to that bridge in Del Rio 3 weeks ago. So we came here to see where the border crisis begins long before it reaches the U.S. A pipeline of Haitian migrants streaming towards the U.S. begins thousands of miles south of the American southern border. Panama's foreign minister, Erika Muñez, says there are currently 60,000 migrants passing through her country, with another 20,000 waiting to cross from Colombia. But that crossing is through some of the most treacherous terrain on Earth, the Darien Gap. A lawless jungle, inaccessible by road, ruled by drug traffickers, smugglers, and bandits who prey on the migrants. It is the only break in the Pan American Highway from Alaska to the tip of South America, and many never make it through.
They mention a lot of places. They talk about going down a hill, the Hill of Death. They've also said that on some occasions migrants had accidents.
Now graves are dug in nearby towns like Agua Fria for those who perish along the way. Yet the International Organization of Migration says that more than 91,000 migrants have successfully made it through the gap this year, as the pipeline has turned profitable on the Colombian side. Residents are being thrown out of their homes to make room for a place to stay for paying Haitians.
Around 100 homes have been taken from local renters to give them to Haitians, and around 50 commercial locales have also been taken, or contracts have been ended to rent to Haitians.
The next stop in their journey, shelters here in southern Panama that our cameras got an exclusive look at. You saw dead bodies?
Yes, so many dead bodies.
Really?
Yes, it was. I was really shocked when I saw them, and I was like, wow, just forget about it. We just have to focus and do what we had to do.
Brad, the conditions here in this camp are a humanitarian crisis, though the Panamanian officials are doing the best they can to deal with it. They say that some 500 to 1,000 migrants arrive every single day coming through that Darien Gap, but some 500 also leave on buses that you see behind me. That bus, just like many before it all day, goes straight to the Costa Rican border where they'll be let out to continue their journey. The cost for a ride, $40. Brett?
Taking off now. Watch out for that bus. Griff Jenkins live in Panama. Griff, thanks.
All new and off the top. Border Patrol agents in the valley are keeping an eye on a new tactic: criminals using city drainage systems. In the past couple of weeks, they found migrants in some of those tight spaces. But as our Alyssa Cole explains, criminals are using the underground systems for more than transporting people.
Take a look at these photos. That's a Border Patrol agent helping a migrant out of the drainage system in Brownsville on September 28th. That drainage tunnel is only a couple of feet wide, and that day, agents used a ladder to remove 3 migrants attempting to enter the U.S.
It has become a common tactic for the transnational criminal organization to use the drainage system.
The next day, agents investigated valley drainage systems again, but this time roughly 70 miles away in the city of Hidalgo near the border wall.
Our agents did encounter approximately 20 subjects consisting of individuals from Central America and Mexico.
The latest drainage investigation happening on October 4th, agents responding to these tunnels in Hidalgo to find this, nearly 400 pounds of marijuana stashed inside.
In that incident, there were not any migrants or smugglers associated to that incident.
While agents say there hasn't been a large surge of smugglers transporting drugs and people through valley drainage systems, they say there has been some concern.
Apart from the odorless gases, the water being released, one could get lost. And also, it is filled with bacteria and viruses.
When Border Patrol agents investigate the drainage system, they typically have firefighters and police officers help them rescue anyone inside. In the case of the city of Hidalgo, we've reached out to city leaders to find out how they plan to address the problem and if it's been happening on a regular basis. We haven't heard back from them, and as soon as we do, we'll let you know. Alyssa Cole, Channel 5 News.
Authorities are asking you to speak up if you see anything out of the ordinary in your neighborhood. Call 800-863-9382 to report suspicious activity to Border Patrol.
More than 30 Cuban migrants are now in custody of U.S. Customs and Border Protection. They were found hiding in a trailered boat during a traffic stop in the Florida Keys. The Monroe County Sheriff's Office shared a picture of the boat on social media with the migrants on board. The group included 2 pregnant women and a 17-year-old. No word yet on if the driver is facing charges. The discovery comes after nearly 24 Cubans arrived over the weekend as part of 2 different smuggling events.
Well, some red states tried to go it alone on protecting the border, but budget shortfalls are now forcing Republican governors to call back their National Guard troops. The move reportedly leaving some sections of the border completely unguarded. And joining me now is Chris Cabrera. He's a spokesman for the National Border Patrol Council. And I know that those National Guard troops were a great help, but now that many of them have had to return to their states, what does the border situation look like without them?
Yeah, they were a great help down here, filling in a lot of spots where we had gaps in coverage. And right now it just seems that whenever we start to get any progress and start catching up, we just get another hand tied behind our back. But it's too bad that they're gone. And I'm sure that all the border states appreciated that help and understood it couldn't last forever. But the federal government doesn't seem to be doing anything more to help. I also wanted to ask you about this very disturbing story. This happened in Arizona, where a group of 125 migrants, if you could put the tweet up on the screen for everyone to see, a group of 125 migrants surrendered to 3-point station agents near San Miguel, Arizona. Nearly 3/4 were unaccompanied children. Large groups of mostly children continue to be exploited by smugglers who leave them at the border for agents to encounter. Thankfully, these young people were found. I mean, it's possible that some of them could have died out there. Yeah, it's very possible that somebody could have died out there, either on our side or somewhere along the journey. What's most disturbing is that a lot of times the parents of these children are already here in the United States, and we reward these parents by giving them the child right back and completing the smuggling process for them. There needs to be some type of consequences for endangering their child, and this just can't go on because as more children come, more don't make it.
Chris, it's interesting you say that. I've thought about this too, which is that if in America you're a parent and you abandon your child, you would be charged with reckless endangerment of a child. I think the point you just made is very interesting, is that if we have no consequences for sending your children with smugglers into all of this danger, then they're going to continue to keep doing that, right?
Yeah, and we've heard stories from some of these kids that cross, how there was others in their group that didn't quite make it. We continue to leave this beacon of light on for them to come and cross and put themselves in danger, put their lives in danger, put their children in danger, yet we give them back at the end of the day. And at some point, there needs to be some type of consequence, whether it's getting Child Protective Services involved or locking somebody up. But, I mean, it's not right to put these kids in the situations that they're in.
Do you ever get a sense amongst all the people that are coming across that you've had a chance to talk to or that you've heard from other agents, do they think that the Biden administration just has an open door policy? Because the administration says that they've told them not to come.
Yeah, there's no think about it. We know there's an open door policy. You can say what you want till you're blue in the face, but if your actions are allowing people to come in and stay, on top of that, you have Secretary Mayorkas saying that just because you came in illegally doesn't mean you should be removed. Well, that's exactly what it means, but their actions are proving that it is an open door policy, and they don't care how many people come because we're going to let them stay.
Is there anything that you're doing now or that you know of in terms of plans to deal with all the migrants that are coming now? We just saw Griff's report out of Panama, up to 80 to 100,000 migrants going to make its way north.
Yeah, I think the main thing there is nobody knows exactly where they're going to go. I can tell you, though, once they get here, no matter where they hit, from Brownsville to San Diego, like always, we're going to be reactive instead of proactive, and we're just going to be chasing everything down, trying to get it done at the last minute. We're not given the resources to get it done. We'll do the best with what we have, but apparently the administration is not too concerned about what goes on down here. Hell, that we can't even get them to come visit.
Chris Cabrera, thank you so much. We'd love to stay in touch with you as this unfolds. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That is a state-run operation. The feds, meanwhile, rejecting some who cross the border illegally under Title 42. It's a public health rule, and that's in play because of the COVID threat.
But some groups are asking an international human rights panel to put an end to it. Channel 5's Santiago Caicedo spoke with one woman who says she is in danger back in her home country.
A Jamaican woman is currently stuck in Tijuana, Mexico, looking to get asylum in the U.S.
But I'm afraid that if we go to the port of entry or even cross the border, we will be immediately deported to Jamaica and killed.
As a lesbian, she and her partner say they have evidence showing the verbal and physical abuse they've received from family and strangers back home due to their sexual orientation.
Her uncle said to her once that he was going to beat the gay out of her.
Several attorneys and organizations have asked the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights to issue precautionary measures against the U.S., which would ask for the end of the use of Title 42 as a health directive used to keep the border closed for health reasons.
Is that it act and that it urged the United States to stop these dangers, to stop forcing people to return to situations where their lives are at risk.
Last week, President Biden's health advisor, Dr. Anthony Fauci, told CNN he found no reason for the CDC to continue to implement Title 42.
My feeling has always been that focusing on immigrants, expelling them or what have you, is not the solution to an outbreak.
One activist said Title 42 is being misused.
Title 42 is not a public health policy. It is genocide, and it is happening in our name.
The human rights panel that received this request is part of the Organization of American States. Many of the migrants that cross the border are from countries that are members of that organization. We'll be sure to keep a close eye on what the end recommendations will be to the United States on Title 42. At Ansalduas Park and Mission, Santiago Caicedo, Channel 5 News.
I mean, that's just a typical example of D.C. politics getting in the way. And it's not even just the wall materials that are not being utilized right now, but alongside the Rio Grande Valley sector and the Tucson sector that I was most recently at, there are parts of the border wall that have the lights that were built so that Border Patrol has an easier time of seeing at night if anyone's attempting to cross. But because they weren't plugged in prior to President Biden ordering a halt, they're just useless now. They're decorations at this point. And so even if it's not saying that, well, if you're not going to build the wall, can you at least build the technology or finish plugging in the lights? But because that order was just so wide sweeping, even something as simple as plugging in lights is not allowed under the administration. And on top of that, we're still paying the contractors because the contracts were already signed, but we're paying them to not continue the work that we're doing. And so as a result, and as what I've seen personally in my time down there, we've seen people having a much easier time going in through the gaps in the border wall system because there's obviously no barrier preventing them from illegally entering the country.
We're talking about reportedly about $120 million worth of wall that's not going to get put up. What would that have meant for Texas and your men had the Biden administration followed through on the contract?
Well, Leland, thanks for having me. So we know that a barrier, a wall, is very effective. We saw that when it took place in Del Rio. We were able to form a barrier with our patrol cars. It was very effective. It stemmed the flow of migrants coming across. And it's a very viable resource to law enforcement. It helps law enforcement because what it does is divert criminal activity or illegal immigrants to another portion of the border where we can focus our resources. But now in this case, where they're completely canceling the border wall, that just goes to show you that the federal government has no intentions to solve this crisis, have no intentions to have a plan of action. And right now we're seeing numbers that we've never seen before in previous years. The numbers are of epic proportions, and it's going to continue. And right now the cartels are getting even more bold because of these lax border policies. And now with the fact that the border wall is completely canceled, it's going to embolden these cartels even more now to continue with their operations of criminal activity.
Criminal activity, we saw the gunfight across in Roma. You and I spent a weekend together, both on the water and on the land. How worried are you all that the cartels are, you say, going to be emboldened, that at some point there's going to be a clash between your officers on the front lines and the cartels who are trying to get their drugs and people through?
So, Lita, one thing that we've never seen before in prior years is how these drug trafficking organizations, these criminals that are operating in Mexico, are brandishing weapons towards National Guard. We've had several incidents this past week alone where we have a group of males that are on the Mexican side. They're brandishing weapons, taunting National Guard, shouting out obscenities towards them. So we've never seen this before. We've never seen these type of tactics from these criminal organizations. So we're anticipating that the way things are going right now, and the fact that the lax border policies and nothing's being done by the federal government to take action, and also from Mexico. They're not putting pressure on Mexico to get involved with this current situation and to contain and control these cartels that are operating in Mexico. But again, like I mentioned, we're seeing this activity that we've never seen before. They're becoming more bold, brandishing weapons, AK-47s towards our National Guardsmen. Is something that we've never seen before, and it worries us. It's very concerning to us as law enforcement.
Yeah, I know. I can imagine, because I was there with you, and I can imagine how concerned everybody would be if there were AK-47s on the other side of the border. Lieutenant, always great to see you. Appreciate it.
You are calling for the impeachment of the Secretary of Homeland Security, Mayorkas, after canceling this. Explain more.
So, yeah, and I don't just say that. You know, I don't use that term loosely. I don't think it's a good thing to do. I think some people just scream impeachment every time a politician does something they don't like. I'm not doing that here. I think there's very clear examples of a deliberate dereliction of constitutional duty on the part of the Secretary of Homeland Security.
To protect the country.
It's not just to protect this country. It actually has very little to do with the cancellation of the border wall contracts. I think that's infuriating, but the real dereliction of duty is simply refusal to actually enforce the laws of our country. And those laws might be our asylum process laws. Those laws might be internal enforcement inside where deportations are necessary. Those laws might be simply crossing the border illegally. And the only action that DHS has taken has been against those border agents trying to do their job on horseback, trying to stop people from rushing the border. So this is very deliberate, and see, intent matters when you're accusing somebody of what is effectively a crime. And in this case, I think he deserves impeachment, absolutely.
Now I want to bring in Jake Beckett. He is the Republican from Arkansas who's running for the United States Senate. All right, Jake, let's go straight at it. Why is absolutely nothing being done at the border? In your opinion, why is nothing being done?
Well, I think at this point, the only logical conclusion is that Joe Biden wants us to have no southern border. Look, no nation has any sovereignty without borders, and we have over 2 million illegal immigrants who are coming to this country this year alone, tens of millions over the past decades. This is a bipartisan problem. Establishment career politicians in both parties over the past several decades have refused to solve this problem. We need a new generation of conservative leaders who are actually going to enforce federal immigration law so our country can have a border and have a secure national sovereignty. This is a marquee issue for me. This is one of the reasons why I'm running for U.S. Senate.
What's the impact of this migrant surge in the state of Arkansas?
Well, it's very negative. Arkansas is not a border state, but we're directly impacted. I was talking to a county sheriff in central Arkansas just last week who said that fentanyl trafficking in his county is through the roof, and that is directly due to the open border of the Biden administration. Look, we're seeing increases in crime. We're seeing increases in drug-related deaths, homicides, assaults. This is a serious issue that Arkansans truly care about, and career politicians in the GOP and the Democrat Party have refused to solve it. I'm going to change that.
I don't think that the Biden team understands how negative the PR is from this border surge. If they think it's a political plus, I think they're totally wrong.
Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds has not yet announced her re-election campaign. She has held limited public appearances in our state the past couple of months, and she's also been taking part in some national conversations. This week, we're going to take you along on our exclusive boat trip with the Border Patrol and the governor on the Rio Grande on the country's southern border. Find out why the governor says this trip was not a photo op and why she says, as Iowa's governor, she needed to be there. And in the Insider's Quick Six, a look at what we saw in Texas and Mexico.
From your local election headquarters, this is the Insiders with Dave Price.
Kim Reynolds never previously had this view of the nation's immigration challenges as Iowa's governor. The Border Patrol and Texas troopers took her on a 1-hour boat tour of the Rio Grande. It's the river that splits southwest Texas and northeast Mexico. We talked to her along this route about why she took this trip and what she witnessed. But first, we'll set up the situation there at the border with Leland Bittert.
The money food chain for the cartels, you got guns, drugs, currency, human smuggling. What's the order?
Human smuggling right now is their biggest commodity. They're making millions and millions of dollars a month off of human smuggling because it's less risk for them as far as moving narcotics.
Welcome to what has become a routine traffic stop in South Texas on a Sunday afternoon. Forget a broken taillight. You've got 4 people who each paid $25,000 for a VIP smuggling trip into the United States. It feels like the cartel's almost one step ahead of you guys and of the administration.
They are, because they know the loopholes, they know how to exploit them.
This is the path that illegal immigrants walk on from the Rio Grande a half a mile that way here into America. The Border Patrol's given up on stopping them or capturing them, but they have erected these conveniently located signs to let folks know to keep walking about another half a mile so they can simply be processed. But why is it that people walking across is something you just can't even bother to deal with?
Because of the policies that are in place for now. The policies in place for now makes it easier for these illegal immigrants to come across with no resistance, and that's why they're doing it. And as the message gets sent to their home countries, more people are going to continue to come. That's what we're seeing day in and day out.
Runners are different than raft people. How?
If they're trying to come across and not be caught, they're either moving some type of product or a high-value individual or guns, drugs.
Holy cow, there's like 30 people. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 15. We'll give you the state of play right now. That's the Border Patrol drone. You can see a couple of the flashlights. Those are the state troopers yelling, they found somebody or somebodies. $7,000 to bring you from El Salvador to here.
Yeah.
This area right here is a very, very high violent area on the Mexico side. A lot of cartel infighting, report after report every night of machine gun fire. There's a lot of cartel overlap here, and that's the reason why they're fighting.
A lot of cartel overlap, and they overlap here because of how valuable this ground is for smuggling.
Absolutely.
Oh my God. This video sounds like a firefight in Syria right now, and it was recorded at that house. From that house. Yeah. And that's the cartels fighting. Those aren't handguns.
No.
That's heavy weapons.
Yeah, that's heavy weapons.
It's a little different, you know. Jesse James had a 6-shooter, and now the cartel has RPGs. There's obviously been a lot of discussion about walls. The wall you're seeing right here is privately built, and the troopers out on the water tell me this is one part of the river they don't have to patrol, hence why we can go fast through it. So the technology that the cartels have is as good as the technology that you guys have or close.
Yeah, I would say.
It's kind of scary.
It is.
And you realize that they probably have the same kind of weapons that you guys do.
Yes.
We're in one of the most deserted parts of the Rio Grande, and we've stopped on the Texas Highway Patrol boat. You can see this is a trough, a drainage ditch that the coyotes have taken over to bring down either people or drugs or guns. They can come right across the river here, and then they've made this trail to head right up into Texas. These wristbands are given out by the cartels to the people they're smuggling across. Each color and each different design, much like a nightclub, represents a different cartel and a different service that the people being smuggled have bought.
Right. So ever since this crisis started back in January, Border Patrol has been pulled from the field, keeping them from doing their normal duties, which being out there on the field, deterring any criminal activity, arresting or apprehending illegal immigrants that are coming across, but they're not. They're stuck in processing centers. So now the state of Texas is having to fill those gaps with the resources that we have, state resources.
You're fighting an army that's sophisticated.
Exactly.
They've got intelligence.
Yeah, they have surveillance, they have counter-surveillance, technology, tactics, just exactly what we do, the way we train, they're trained the exact same way.
You have to assume that they know where you guys are, both in the air and then on the ground, right?
Correct.
You guys have been doing this now for 10 years or so. What's changed in terms of the cartel tactic?
Bringing all these bodies over. I mean, for them, it's 100% profit.
We're seeing more bodies now than we are narcotics in this general area. Before, back in the day, we used to see a lot of narcotics coming across, and it's probably about 50-50.
What's harder to catch, people or narcotics?
Both. They're both hard. They have a lot of scouts along the river, and they'll sit out there on the top of a tree. A lot of the stuff gets through just because all the time in the world to move it. We're limited on the amount of gas that we have. By the time we go back and get refueled, that's the time that they have a big gap to be able to move everything across, you know?
And the manpower, they have the unlimited manpower.
We saw dozens of people carrying envelopes during our time in Texas. Many of them were in the McAllen, Texas airport holding them. So on there it says, please, I don't speak English. Can you help me? And they use that to try to navigate their way through the airports. In the case where we were, we watched them as they used that to try to board the plane then as they were trying to navigate their way through that and then make their way to Dallas. All right, so with that set up, now we want to get to our conversation with Governor Reynolds. Critics say her time at the border with 9 other Republican governors, all led by Texas's Governor Greg Abbott, was just a photo op, and it was an effort to just rip the Democratic President Joe Biden. Here's how she defended her trip there as we rode with law enforcement and the governor along the Rio Grande.
Well, you know, first of all, I can't believe how much area there is for them to cover. And so no wonder it's the problem that it is when you take a look at the stretch that we just had access to today. You're able to tell on the spots on the Mexico side and then how it corresponds with the spot on the border, and this that they use rafts to go across. We did get a chance to see the fence that was paid for with private funding. It was interesting to see really how expansive that was, and that it was lit at night, so it was interesting to see that. But it gives you a real appreciation of just the expansive territory that they have to cover, and it makes you understand why we see probably the volume that we do of people being smuggled across the border.
How do you balance, when you go on a tour like this, how do you balance the desperation of the people to get out with the need for law and security on the other side?
Yeah, well, we're a country of laws, and when we don't have a country of laws, then we become exactly what they're trying to get away from. And so it's imperative that we have policy in place that, dissuades them from even, taking that risk and coming across the border. And, I've said for a long time, we need Congress to come together and figure out a immigration policy. It takes too long, it's too expensive, but we need to do it right. We can't encourage illegal immigration, and it is turning into mass migration. And if we've seen 1.5 million right now, we have hundreds of thousands that are on their way, 12,000 dispersed just from Haiti, a couple weeks ago. We can't handle that. We're not prepared to do that, and it'll have an impact, a severe impact on not only Iowans, but Americans.
Why should people not be cynical in that we've gone, for the last couple of decades, we've had different parties in power in Washington or different combinations, whatever, and there's never been any substantial, lasting immigration reform? Have we reached a point where it will only truly be, change will happen by having states handle this?
Well, I don't think you see that happening, because you'll see a hodgepodge. The federal government, the Congress needs to step up and do it. And both parties have not followed through with what they said they would do. But maybe, witnessing what we are today, the amount of drugs and human trafficking that's, coming across the border and into our country, maybe at some point that'll be a little bit of an incentive for them to get serious about figuring out a way. But the first thing you have to, before we talk about that at all, Dave, you have to secure the border. I mean, we have to stop the flow before we can have a legitimate conversation about how many people are here and what that looks like and how we move forward. And so, this needs to be a priority. We need to stop the flow. We need to stop the amount of drugs and people that are being smuggled across this border is unconscionable. They were saying in the briefing this morning that the cartel is making, and the smugglers are making $400 million a month just smuggling people, and that has nothing to do with the drugs. And think of the money that they're making with that. And so, the policies that the president has put in place is incentivizing that. We gave him 10 policy solutions that he could implement tomorrow. It doesn't even take an act of Congress that we believe would stop the people from coming, because right now I believe they think that if they can get here, they can get into the United States, and they're here to stay.
And I'm coming to you live this morning from Del Rio, Texas, the site of the massive influx of migrants from Haiti that were camped under the bridge behind me just last month. Agents I've spoken with say that this area could see a similar surge as cartels like to flood specific spots in order to draw resources away from more sparse areas, distract the border agents so that they have to tend to that, and then the cartels use that open space to get drugs and human trafficking in. Attorney General from Texas, Ken Paxton, and I got a bird's eye view of the area with the Texas Department of Public Safety.
This is the Rio Grande right here. Most of the crossings that we've been seeing starts happening about right here all the way down to the POE. Mexico's, 100 feet that way, and we're right on the line. So this is all Mexico. And on this side of the river is the U.S. Here's the border wall. You can see the gaps in the wall. So this little wall has been here for a while. That big wall is the one that started when President Trump was in office. And then you can see it's just not done.
So right over there, across here, is all Mexico.
That's all Mexico. So if you look down in the river, you can actually see the trail. They have actually wore a trail in the river bottom coming across.
Yeah, I see it. You see it, Maria?
Yes. How wide is the river over here?
80 feet maybe. But you can see it's only It's shin deep.
Typically, you'll see migrants coming across more so in the morning.
Yes, ma'am. I think it's because they want to get an early start. It's so hot in Texas, you don't want to be moving during the day.
We're crossing over the Del Rio Bridge, which is the spot where 15,000 Haitians gathered for a week in September.
This is another huge crossing point. See that great big path in the river? They had school buses bringing them down here. They'll go across that path, and then they'll walk up this road right here. And then their Border Patrol had Greyhound buses, but I don't see them now. And they pick them up right over here. 5-6 years ago, we were chasing them and chasing with Border Patrol on foot. Now they just, we just call them, hey, you got 50 down here waiting. Because they're not running.
Right, they're coming, they're turning themselves in.
This river cane that you're seeing here looks like a sugar cane. Most of that's about 12 foot tall.
Oh.
They try to keep it mowed down because you can literally put 100 people in that cane and you can't see them.
How often are you finding people hiding in the sugar cane?
They'll call it a brush up, or they'll come across, they'll change their clothes, get dry clothes, and they'll wait. And then they'll cross these drag roads that you're seeing, all these ranch roads, and try to make it to the highway to get picked up.
How far is the first highway, would you say?
That's that's US 277 right there.
How far do you think that is?
Probably 4 miles, I bet.
So they'll cross the river and then just walk the 4 miles and meet a car, perhaps waiting for them.
Yes, ma'am.
What are the biggest numbers in terms of the biggest groups that you've encountered?
I've had 50, 100, stuff like that. A lot of 20s. But out here, the groups that you'll see out here, these are the ones that are going to run. They don't want to get caught for whatever reason. But out here, it's usually 10s and 15s.
I mean, if they see helicopters, they'll go hide, right?
Yes and no. The ones that want to just turn themselves in, I've been flagged down by them before. I've been flying along, and they'll stand out in the middle of the road and wave a T-shirt to flag us down. And then the ones that don't want to get caught, they're going to crawl up underneath a tree and wait for us to fly over and keep on going.
Do the Mexican cartels stay on the Mexico side?
I think so, yes, ma'am, for the most part. They're kind of like travel agents. They're taking the money and bringing them here and dropping them off. And, you pay them, they get the coyote, and they bring you across.
Are you expecting another caravan on the way?
Last I heard was 60,000 on the way. And we're looking for groups. The ones that are turning themselves in, we're not concerned with as much as the ones that don't want to get caught.
How many gotaways would you estimate have gotten away this year?
Oh, I would, a lot.
Hundreds of thousands?
Probably.
AG, how much worse has this gotten from your standpoint over the last several months?
Well, the numbers keep going up. It's continuing to get worse. It's got obviously a massive influx once Biden became president, and those numbers just keep growing. We had our worst year up to September 1st is the fiscal year for the federal government, the worst year we've, I think, ever had, and I think next year will be worse.
And joining me right now is the president of the National Border Patrol Council, Brandon Judd. Brandon, it's good to see you. Thanks very much for being here. I was so happy to be able to spend time with you the last time we were here in McAllen, Texas. Assess where we are after.
Well, first off, I'm very disturbed that you're here. I'm grateful that you're here, but I'm disturbed by that. The fact is you've been here on multiple occasions. You've come here to study the actual issue. Where's Vice President Harris? She's the border czar. She's the one that's supposed to be here learning about everything that goes on. She's the one that can put pen to paper. Yet you're the one that's here informing the American public of exactly what's going on. That should disturb every single United States citizen. So, again, I'm grateful that you're here, but this needs to be Vice President Harris. She's the border czar.
My team and I have been here now 3 times. We went to El Paso, we went to McAllen, now we're here in Del Rio, and I just see this expanding. Yeah. Do you think it's expanding?
No, I know it's expanding. So what the cartels normally do is they'll hit us in vulnerable locations. locations. And as those locations start to get more resources, they'll move. So what we saw in McAllen, we saw an awful lot of people in McAllen. As resources start to get flooded in McAllen, they start moving out west. Now they're hitting us in Del Rio. And there's a good reason for it. They know darn good and well that the infrastructure just isn't available here, so it becomes a very vulnerable location. But as we slowly start to send more resources, then they work their way out to Arizona, Yuma, and that's where we're seeing huge problems right now is in Yuma, Arizona.
Tell me about Yuma. What kind of arrests are you making in Yuma, Arizona?
So just between September 19th and September 25th, we had over 5,000 arrests, 5,400 arrests in a very small sector. This isn't a large area, kind of like McAllen or Del Rio. This is a very small area, 5,400 arrests. And what's scary about that is we're talking about people from Romania, Russia, Bangladesh, Armenia, different countries that harbor ill will towards the United States. Yet that's what we're seeing coming across the borders.
We were watching videos of some of the people that were arrested, and a lot of them, I mean, you've got like some gangs have tattoos that indicate they're part of a group, right? Mm-hmm. So is that a red flag when you see somebody with like certain like patchwork, like the whole body of tattooed? And I'm not poo-pooing tattoos. I like ink, but I'm saying when there are certain red flags that you see, so that's a gang member, right?
There's certain ink in certain spots. Intelligence.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, we have to look for indicators. We have to look for those things that would tell us that this person is coming here to do us harm, or this person is coming here for the illegal trade that exists in the United States. And so, yeah, we've always got to be careful for that, and we see it all the time.
So I've learned so much just in this short period of time for this trip. Another thing I learned that the partners of some of the Mexican cartels are American citizens.
They are.
The smugglers are helping the cartels, and they live in America. They become the getaway cars. Tell me about that.
So the vast majority of the vehicles that we pull over, when we make a vehicle stop, when there's probable cause to believe that an illegal activity is taking place, specifically illegal smuggling, when those vehicles are pulled over, we're finding that the vast majority of the individuals that are transporting these people are United States citizens.
Wow.
Right now in Arizona, Arizona DPS is doing a great job of what we call knocking down these smuggling loads. And we're finding that, again, that the vast majority of these vehicles are being driven by United States citizens.
So let's talk about that for a second. So you've got American citizens who want to make a buck. Mm-hmm. They see the advertisements of the Mexican cartels on TikTok, on Snapchat. Talk about that. Tell me, so they see, Mexican cartels need my help to be a getaway car. They see it on TikTok. They come and they do a deal with the cartels.
So not only do these criminal cartels go into other countries to advertise their services to smuggle people here, they're also advertising, looking for help wanted, if you will. They put the help wanted ads out. United States citizens respond to those help wanted ads, and it's a very lucrative business. That's why so many United States citizens are getting involved in this. But not just that, they also have scouts here in the United States. They will have scouts camped out on mountains watching Border Patrol agents, watching the movement of the agents, noticing when there are gaps in our coverage, and that's when they hit us really hard. And then they use United States citizens on the back end to smuggle these people into the United States.
That's incredible. So just to point out, TikTok is a Chinese company. Yeah. China owns TikTok, and they're using TikTok a lot to advertise their services. They're charging what to the people who want to get into America? Is it $10,000 a head? And then how much are they paying the American citizens that are becoming their getaway cars?
It strictly depends on where these individuals are coming from. If you use a very conservative estimate, if you're coming from Mexico, Central America, you're paying about $4,000 per person. But if you're coming from China, you're paying anywhere between $35,000 to $50,000. And what's scary about that is, look, I have a very good job. I don't have $35,000 laying around, let alone $50,000. If these people are smuggled here into the United States, they're going into indentured servitude here. It's a form of slavery that is taking place, and that's what these criminal cartels are trafficking in. But what's most upsetting about that, it's liberal policies that are allowing these cartels to make so much money, and these liberal policies are allowing these people to go into indentured servitude, yet the Democrats say that they care about people.
Unbelievable. They also said that they care about COVID, and they're not testing COVID on a federal level. Is that right?
No, they don't. They don't. So anybody, well, let's make a differentiation. if we're holding people in custody, they will be tested for COVID. But if we're releasing them, nobody's being tested for COVID. So this is being spread throughout the United States.
Unbelievable. I ran into, I was embedded with one group yesterday, and we ran into a group who came across, they were apprehended, and one guy told me he paid $8,000. I asked him, how much did you pay the cartels? He said $8,000. And then another guy said, are these two your daughters? And it was like they were shell-shocked. I could tell they were not a family. But he was making believe that these two young girls were his daughters.
We've seen that. We've seen that before. And, you know, President Trump did a great job. When we recognized that that was taking place, he employed rapid DNA tests so that we could try to weed out who's recycling these children, who's bringing these children across, just take them back, stick them with other adults to be recycled. It's insane what these cartels will do to people.
Unbelievable. Brandon, thank you for your service. You're doing such a great job on the front lines, and I know that that requires courage, and it's got to be scary. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Maria.
Thank you. Brandon Judd joining us there.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. Welcome back. Over $100 million worth of border wall materials already paid for by taxpayers going to waste, sitting there on the ground. We saw yesterday Fox News capturing enormous numbers of panels going unused as the Biden administration has canceled all remaining wall construction contracts here in the Rio Grande and the Del Rio, area. Joining me right now is the Attorney General of Texas, General Ken Paxton. AG, good to see you. Thanks very much for being here. I made the point earlier, I don't understand how we could waste all of this money as we are struggling to find offsets, struggling to find money to pay for all of the things that this administration wants to do, and yet we just leave all of this stuff wasted.
Even if they didn't think it was the best idea, it was already paid for.
Right.
All the materials sitting there, they're already paying contracts for months and months, sometimes years. Why not go ahead and let those walls be built, even if it's not their favorite idea?
Yeah. We took that helicopter ride yesterday. Thank you for including me so that I could see what was going on from above in the chopper. What was your takeaway most from that chopper ride that we took yesterday?
It always amazes me at how easy it is to cross, and how that wall really could make a difference in directing people towards one spot to stop it once and for all. As you can see, the river was very shallow. It's almost always shallow. And they've got crossing paths. You can see it from overhead. You can see where they cross and how even the algae is out of the way so they can have an easy path to cross.
Yeah, but what really struck me was it's not just the people who are crossing the river to get apprehended. The real risk are the gotaways. And we went and we visited some ranchers yesterday who said that, these people are willing to walk 25, 30 miles so that they could evade walking through the river and getting apprehended.
Yeah, so the numbers are pretty large, right? Larger than we've ever had, over 200,000 a month. And those are just the ones we know about. And as you saw, the Border Patrol and DPS, our state police, were telling us about all these people that actually go other ways, and we never even know where they went. And you saw where the highway was. It's not that far away.
Tell me what Texas is doing. I know yesterday you told us that Texas is allocating a significant amount of money to take matters into your own hand. I know, obviously, Greg Abbott, the governor, has done Operation Lone Star. What's the cost to the state?
This is not ideal. We're spending billions of dollars. The legislature has funded this. We're trying to build our own wall. We've allocated, thousands of officers, National Guard, to come down here and help, but we're limited by law and by the Biden administration as to what we can actually do. So we can do some things, but they really keep us from being really, really effective. And it's really unfortunate because we're willing to help. We're willing to make this work. The Biden administration is working against us, not for us.
Why?
It's a hard thing to understand because there's so much damage associated with this. The spread of COVID, you saw the discussion of fentanyl, the massive amount of fentanyl that kills people coming into our country, the human trafficking, the cartels gaining strength along the border. All of it's bad for Americans. It's not even good for the immigrants to have to come in this way and be subject to the cartel's control. There are better ways to do this, even if you want more immigration. This is as bad as it gets.
Now, we took a trip yesterday into one of the detention centers where they were housing people who trespass on people's private property. What was your takeaway from what we viewed yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of these little efforts. We're trying to do what we can. So we can arrest people for trespass. It's a state law violation, but it doesn't mean they end up staying in very long. But it does mean we get information on them. We know who they are. We get DNA samples, so we can track, at least know who's coming in and have some type of background check on them. But then we have to turn them over to Border Patrol, who then release them into the country. So in the end, it doesn't stop it. It just gives us more information about who's there, and if they're criminals, we can at least find out. We also test them. Unlike the federal government, we actually test these people.
What are you hearing from the Border Patrol and the troopers on the ground in terms of what they're faced with?
Absolute frustration. I mean, they want to do their job, and Border Patrol is basically being instructed not to do their job, to do the opposite, to bring people in, to not stop illegal immigration. That's why Rodney Scott, he was chief Border Patrol agent. He told me he was never asked to enforce the law. He was only chided and corrected for absolutely following the law. It's crazy.
So what can you tell us about what you know in terms of what's happening next? Because I know that the foreign minister of Panama told this administration that there is another caravan coming. She said that it's going to be 60,000 people coming. Do you know anything about that? What can you tell us about that in terms of who will be descending on Del Rio in the coming weeks?
So the federal government doesn't tell us anything. We are just left to deal with it as it faces us, as it comes to us. Just from talking to DPS, our state police, I think they feel like that surge is coming. And honestly, I think this is going to happen throughout the entire Biden administration. Their goal, I think, is to get close to 10 million new people in the country illegally, and they're not stopping. It's clear to me they have no intention. This is not a crisis. This is a planned event for the next 4 years.
That's incredible to me, because we are right now watching these negotiations go on in Washington for this super spending package. You know, $5 trillion. They want to get down to $2 trillion, and they're doing it partly with gimmicks, saying that these programs are going to end. But when you've got an additional millions of people, 10 million, as you say, perhaps, those people will be given benefits, right? And all of that's coming from this sort of government welfare state that's being arranged by this new spending package and Nancy Pelosi and company.
Yeah, I have no doubt that's part of the reason they want to get this through. They know they're going to have millions of new people. On the other hand, states like Texas still have to fund health care. We still have to fund their education, which is significant. We still have to fund extra law enforcement. We have to deal with the social costs of drugs and crime. So it doesn't take away our costs. We still have more to spend beyond what we're spending just on the border.
You keep suing the administration. How many times have you sued them?
So we've sued them 6, and we've been successful so far on 4 of those. But the problem we have is not only are they ignoring federal law, not just ignoring, but doing the opposite, but they're also ignoring court orders. And so we're having to go back to try to enforce, like the Stay in Mexico program, that they are required to follow by a court order, and yet we feel like they're not doing anything. So we've gone back to try to enforce it.
Make a good point, because I spoke with the border agent the other day, and he said there's no way that they are going to put back in place Remain in Mexico. But they have to. The Supreme Court said that it has to go back in place.
It's the law. It's federal law. I mean, Biden can't. He's president. He doesn't get to just make up laws and say, I don't follow these. I'm making up this new law, which is what he's doing. So even the president is subject to law, and he's subject to what Congress put in place. He's subject to court order. 2 other branches of government have told them to move back to the law, which is the Stay in Mexico program, which worked very effectively. And he said, no, we're not doing it.
Well, he did that with the moratorium on rent as well. The Supreme Court said we can't have this moratorium on renters paying the landlord, and yet he kept it going, blowing off the Supreme Court, which is extraordinary.
I've never seen a president. I've seen a president ignore federal law. I mean, we dealt with 27 lawsuits against President Obama from my state. But usually if we got a court order, he would follow it. Yeah. Now we got a president that says, I don't do court orders either. I do what I want to do.
Unbelievable. A.G. Paxton, thanks very much for your leadership.
Thank you.
All right, good. Welcome back. Well, the crisis at the border drawing attention from the highest levels of government. My next guest just returned from the Texas border to see the crisis firsthand. Senator Marsha Blackburn is a member of the Armed Services Committee, Commerce Committee, Judiciary Committee, and Veterans Affairs Committee, and she joins us right now. Senator, it's great to see you. Thanks very much for being here. Obviously, I am here in Del Rio, where you were just a few days ago. I've learned a lot, and I've been here twice before, but the story keeps coming together. Can you tell us a little about your takeaways from the border?
Absolutely. And Maria, they were so excited that you were coming down because it helps the Border Patrol to get their message out. They want to do their job. And of course, the Biden administration is canceling contracts. They're taking away resources that the border agents need to do their job. And what you're seeing there is an influx. And I appreciate that you talk to some of the ranchers and the property owners, because these good people are having to pay for damage to their crops, to their fences, to their property, because you have the gotaways and those that are crossing, the criminal element that are crossing the border. And Maria, as you're finding out, the criminal element has seen an uptick in activity at the border because they know the Biden administration is not going to take them to court. They're not going to be tough on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, it's so extraordinary.
And so
you know,
they're
speaking
emboldened.
with the ranchers yesterday was unbelievable, because I mean, one rancher cried. I mean, another rancher told me she doesn't go anywhere without her gun on her, her pistol on her. I mean,
That's right.
you know, how is it possible that we don't have anybody in the White House who understands the hurt and the incredible impact that American citizens are feeling as a result of this overflow of foreigners coming in?
And that is the thing that is so astounding, because these ranchers go out every day. They have found dead bodies. They have property that has been destroyed. They know that it is drug smugglers, it is human traffickers that are trying to evade capture that are coming across their property. And Maria, these guys want to help because they realize this is a humanitarian crisis. It is also a national security crisis. As you heard from one of the Texas Rangers this morning, 150 different countries have been apprehended at this southern border. We have had people on the terrorist watch list that have been apprehended this year at the southern border. And we know that these women and children are sexually abused as they make this journey, as they pay these high fees to the cartels, and then they're being thrown into sex trafficking and human trafficking rings once they get to the U.S.
Senator, what do you know about the caravan that is on the way here? I know that the foreign minister of Panama has alerted this administration that there are more caravans on the way. One soundbite I saw, one guy saying, "We are on their way, we're going, and we are ready for war."
Right. I saw that also. And whether it was the National Guard, the Texas DPS, or whether it was the Border Patrol, I would ask them what they knew. And they would say, well, we don't know exactly where they're going to try to come in. Of course, Texas is trying to fortify their border right now so that they don't have the 60,000 people coming into Texas. But Maria, bear in mind that as soon as they get there and they get to that reception center under the bridge, they begin to process them. And the next morning, they are on flights out of Harlingen and McAllen and on their way to other places around the country. Every town's a border town. Every state is a border state. And when you talk to the TSA agents there at McAllen, they have had to set up a special screening process for these individuals to put them on these flights and move them on, because they don't have IDs. They don't have the paperwork. They can't show you an ID. So they have to go through a special screening process to get on. And, you know, this is how broken this system is. There are solutions. The Border Patrol will tell you there are ways to fix this. Build a wall. Put back the technology that President Trump had given them. Reinstate Remain in Mexico. Keep Title 42. End catch and release. put more agents on the ground. And as you probably heard from the ranchers, they said, put the National Guard on the border. Help us to stop this.
Yeah. So let me switch gears, ask you about the conversations taking place in Washington. I mean, it's extraordinary to me that you're there talking about an infrastructure package with not a dime toward the border. No extra money in Homeland Security, no increase in defense spending, even as our adversaries are rising. What's the story on infrastructure and the spending package and where they are going?
Maria, I have had an amendment that would build the border wall as a shovel-ready infrastructure project. Everything is right there. You've seen it for yourself. All they have to do is put those components in the ground. What you're going to see happen is Pelosi wants to put all of this together. Bernie's bill, which is $3.5 trillion, infrastructure, which is $1.2 trillion. Take one vote. And in that one vote, what they would do is seat their socialist agenda, which is government control of your kids. It is the IRS with the power to look at every transaction above $600 in and out of your bank account. It would give them what they want for the Green New Deal. To put those provisions in place, it would expand both Medicare and Medicaid and would change that health care delivery system, give it that government control. Yeah. This is their goal. This is what they're trying to do, turn us into a socialist nation.
Well, do you think that these were Obama's ideas, but Obama didn't want to get a 30% approval rating, so he just put Joe Biden in there, and it's like, it's on Joe, it's on Joe, it's on Joe, and then when they're ready, they'll just take Joe out? I mean, is that the plan?
We continue to hear that Obama's team, both Obama, Valerie Jarrett, and then, of course, Ron Klain, Susan Rice, Jake Sullivan, that they are calling all the shots in the White House and that Biden is not making those decisions. So, yeah, I think that that's pretty much where they are.
All right. Senator, thanks very much for your leadership and all that you're doing. We're happy to see you this morning. Thank you so much. Well, those individuals told me that they were charged $8,000 each. It was $8,000 a head to get across. We are now talking with the Texas Department of Public Safety, Lieutenant Christopher Olivares. Lieutenant Olivares, it's great to see you. Thanks very much for your help while we're on the ground, and thanks for joining us here. Your reaction to my conversation with that group from Venezuela.
Well, good morning. Thanks for having me, Maria. So first I want to say we appreciate you visiting the border once again. I know you're in the Rio Grande Valley. Now you're in Del Rio. It's very important not only to law enforcement, but also to the American people that they get to a better understanding of what's taking place along the border. So we want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Now, of course, what we saw yesterday, these are the individuals that are coming across either with children or what we call family units. And these are the ones that voluntarily surrender to law enforcement, because the communication is if you surrender to law enforcement, chances are you will be released into the country. And that's what we're seeing. That's what we saw yesterday with that particular group.
Isn't that incredible that people wait a decade to become an American citizen? We've got a structure in place where we issue 1 million green cards every year, and yet these people coming across are doing it illegally, and they're able to jump the line.
Right. You're right on point. But the issue is that the federal government has pushed out that message that right now is the time to come to the U.S. because you will be released to the country. And that's why we continue to see this surge of illegal immigrants coming across. We saw that 2 weeks ago with the Haitians in Del Rio. That's a perfect example of the messaging that's being relayed to these individuals in Mexico and in other parts of the country. We're seeing over 150 countries right now individuals coming from. That's very concerning to us.
One thing that I learned about Del Rio is the reason that you're seeing so much activity here is because there's not a lot of infrastructure. So they come in, they can quickly get with their getaway car and get on the highway. They're in San Antonio in 2 hours.
Right. So the infrastructure, as you mentioned, it's more rural area here in Del Rio as opposed to the Rio Grande Valley or the parts of the southern border. So the human smuggling organizations, the cartels, take advantage of that. They exploit that, and they use that to their advantage. So they're recruiting drivers from other parts of Texas, larger cities, even out of state, that are coming to Del Rio solely to become drivers for human smuggling
individuals, to smuggle individuals. And they're being advertised on social media, TikTok, Snapchat, because it's a very lucrative business for these individuals, enticing for them. So that's why we're seeing these individuals come to Del Rio to become drivers.
Well, that was another incredible headline that I learned on this trip, that there are American citizens that are saying they're seeing these Mexican cartels advertising on TikTok, and they're responding, and they want to make a buck. So they're the getaway car. Look, Lieutenant, you're on the front lines of this crisis. Thank you so much for all that you're doing to protect America. The Texas Department of Public Safety working to chase down smugglers and illegals. You shared a stunning video with us yesterday of some of the arrests that you've been doing. It's part of this broader mission called Operation Lone Star,
right,
which Governor Abbott has put in place. Tell me about that.
So that's, as we mentioned, Operation Lone Star is an initiative from Governor Greg Abbott. And that's a perfect example of leadership, taking action. Obviously, right now, the federal government has not taken action since the start of this year. So Governor Abbott stepped in and launched Operation Lone Star, which is a state initiative deploying over 1,000 Texas Department of Public Safety personnel to the southern border, along with the Texas National Guard. In addition to that, we started constructing a border fencing in Del Rio with the help of the Texas Military Department, who is constructing that temporary border fence right now. And they've constructed over 3 miles of that. And that helps us with the initiative to impose arrest and jail. We're not doing catch and release. We're arresting and jailing these individuals that are crossing onto private property and violating state law for criminal trespass, and that's what we're doing right now.
Unbelievable. This border crisis is expanding beyond Texas. We know that.
Right.
Arizona is seeing an explosion of illegals in cities like Yuma and Tucson. One source told me that they are making 5,000 arrests a week, which was just mind-blowing to me. Tell me about that. What are you seeing in terms of how this has evolved and expanded?
It's evolved over the years. I mean, and now we're seeing numbers that we've never seen before of epic proportions, and it's expanding. It's starting to escalate to other parts of the border. We're seeing right now in Yuma, Arizona. We're seeing a big increase in that, and it's going to continue to increase so long as the federal government does not step in and take action with these lax border policies. And another example is what took place last week by completely canceling the border wall, construction of the border wall, which is a very viable asset to law enforcement, and now they completely just canceled it.
Yeah, they canceled it.
So it does not make any sense at all whatsoever, and that just goes to show you that they're turning a blind eye to this current crisis, and they have no plan of action in place to take care of it.
And you're there left holding the bag with American citizens who are getting impacted.
Right.
Give us a sense of the plight that Texans and people in these border towns are feeling.
It's affecting them. I'm sure you talked to some of the landowners yesterday, some of the ranchers.
Yes.
How it's impacted them, how it's impacted their daily lives.
Yeah.
Now they're having to arm themselves just to do daily routine functions that they would normally do, that they wouldn't normally carry a firearm. But now they're having to carry a firearm just to walk up the trash. That's very concerning to our communities. And it's all because of this increase of illegal immigrants that are coming across. Because these individuals, we don't know who they are, and we don't know who they are until we actually apprehend them and actually run a criminal history on them. And we're seeing individuals that are criminal gang members, MS-13, cartel members, individuals that have ties to transnational criminal organizations. These are very serious individuals with criminal histories that we're coming across. And it just goes to show you how it's impacting the American people right now, especially these ranchers.
Very, very disturbing. And let's not forget all the fentanyl and the drugs coming in. We've had 93,000 overdoses in America, and they're largely due to fentanyl because these Mexican cartels are lacing commonly used drugs with fentanyl.
Right.
It's just, oh, God, it's horrible. Lieutenant, thank you.
Thank you.
Good to have you, and thanks for your help with all of this. Lieutenant Christopher Oliveira.